we will get started. So thank you so much for coming today, whenever people are watching it back. I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about how you can bounce back from this last 12 months, 18 months, and for some states, obviously like New South Wales in particular and Victoria, it's been like a really brutal 12, 18 months of long lockdowns. But the clients I've worked with in WA and Queensland have had some of the same stuff going on with the like opening and shutting and opening and shutting. It's been not as detrimental, but as difficult to work with as the long extended lockdowns too. So I know that everyone's kind of coming to the end of the year and it's been a lot going on. And for a lot of people, there were goals and things that you had that now are just feeling quite a long way off. And so I really just wanted to run through some of the things I've been working with my clients on this year to maintain their caseloads, in the hope that you can take some stuff from it and apply it in your practice and see if you can create some of the results that they've been seeing. At the end, I will share a little bit about what it looks like to work with me if you want to know more, but literally just going to share some details if you want to know, because I really just wanted to support as much as possible the guys in that group, and anybody who's keen to rebuild and has still got some oomph left in them, because it has been quite the year. So why is this not clicking through? There we go. So you're in the right place tonight if you have been struggling to rebuild your caseload after COVID. Therapists on your team who are not at capacity, you're working harder than anybody else in the clinic but making less money. That's something I hear really frequently from clients I work with when they first joined me. You feel like everybody's winning in your business but you right now. So I know I felt like this at times in my own business, where my team are getting paid, they're working these lovely hours, and then it's me that's working 50-hour weeks and making less than I would have made in a job. So if that's where you're at right now, it's really common and you're in the right place. And if you lack the systems and processes to be consistent with your marketing, so when you get busy, that's the first thing that goes out the window. I'm going to be sharing some things that will make it really easy to market consistently in small pockets of time, because that's really the deal breaker I found with working people. Is you can do average marketing consistently and get really great results, and far better results than if you do amazing marketing sporadically. So it really is about doing small things on a regular basis, which is what we're going to be covering. And so you're in the right place as well if you want to double your revenue over the next 12 to 24 months, but most importantly, your profit, so you can finally have some financial freedom. And if you want to reduce your own caseload, so you can see less clients without your income being affected, that's a really common goal that I work with people on. And what I'm teaching you tonight is how we achieve that. To work smarter, not harder, so you can spend more time with the people that are important to you. And if you don't feel like you're still achieving your full potential in your practice right now, and I know for a lot of people that's true, particularly of this year, because it's been a bit of a survival year. Don't just get through the year, get through COVID, get through these lockdowns. But a lot of people are like, I had so much I wanted to do this year and I've just felt like I'm chasing my tail. So if you want to move past that, what we're going to talk about will help. And just getting that financial freedom and flexibility that you probably started your practice for, but often I find with the people I work with is still eluding them years in. So I think that most of the people I speak to fall into two camps at the moment. Some are like Erin, who's a physio and craniofacial therapist that's based here in Adelaide that I worked with. When I first met Erin, she had 3 therapists working in her clinic alongside her. She was working 50 to 60-hour weeks, doing 40 hours of hour-long consults a week. Her team were generally sitting at around 50 to 60% capacity. And she was having to, she does international speaking and training, and she was having to use that money to top up the business. And she was still making less than everybody else. And she said to me in the first conversation I had with her, like, I'm at the point where I just don't know why. I don't know why I'm doing this. I could just have a couch in my front room and be doing this on my own and making a lot more money. So we used the system I'm going to teach you tonight to help Erin double the overall caseload in the practice. And we did that in the space of 3 months. We also used the systems piece to cut her hours down from 50 hours down to about 16. She started to be able to pay herself a wage. And 2 years later, because I worked with her a little while ago, she's making twice as much profit in her practice now and still only working those 16 hours a week. And it's from what we're going to talk about today. The other person that the other presentation, I guess, that people I often see at the moment is Lindsay. So Lindsay is a physiotherapist in Brisbane, and Lindsay started working with me in March. And when she came to me, she was like, you know, the clinic's doing okay, but I know we could be doing better. And she'd had her eye on this property, a bigger premises that she wanted to buy for the last 2 years, she told me. And she was like, I just can't take the leap because I'm scared. Like, we sit around 70% capacity, 60-70% capacity. And my husband just keeps saying to me, if you can't get this place full, then how do you ever think you're going to fill the new premise up? And so she was just stuck in this holding pattern of doing okay, but knowing she could do more. And so Lindsay used the same system to take the practice from getting 25 new referrals a month to 55 new referrals a month. And she was achieving that by June, July time. She had her first 500K year in the practice last financial year, like thanks to the work we've done together from February, March time. And our team now sit around 90% capacity, up from the 60-65% they had before. And she's bought her premise, which is the most exciting part. So she's moving in there over the Christmas break. So that's most commonly where I'm finding people sitting at the end of this year post-COVID. It's either, you know, been the straw that broke the camel's back, or it's just kind of kept them in this holding pattern of not quite achieving what they want to achieve. And that's frustrating in, you know, whichever scenario you're sat in. And I know that most people are thinking, well, how is that even possible to achieve those things in a pandemic? But all of the clients that you'll hear me talk about today and their stories and how they've used things that we're going to be discussing tonight have all done that over the last 18 months, and all the things they've achieved have been through the pandemic. So I want you to know that even if things are tough now, there is potential to move past that and actually to come out the other side of this much stronger than you even came in. But it's just about that consistency of marketing, because the lifeblood of the practice is new clients and new referrals. And when you figure out how to make those happen really consistently, that's what makes a huge difference. So like, I'd have you think about what your practice would look like if you learned how to fill it with dream clients, but in a way that felt really good and aligned with your values. Because one of the big things I hear, particularly from women, is that they're seeing all these marketing tactics and they're being all these told ways to grow their practice, but they just don't feel in alignment with any of them, and they feel quite off. And actually it can make them feel a bit trapped, like, well, if that's what it takes to grow my practice, and I don't know if I want to do that, because that's not the kind of person I want to be, or the kind of practice owner I want to be, or the kind of things I want to do. And to also think about what your practice would look like if you could double or triple the number of therapists, number of referrals coming in, and that would allow you then to help a lot more people each year. And the difference it would make if you could get 10 or 20 new referral partners sending new referrals into your clinic, because that's commonly what people achieve using consistent marketing in the way I'm going to show you today. And then finally, just to think about what it would be like if you were working smarter instead of harder, because again, I mean, there are some men that have registered, but I mainly work with women. One of the key things I hear from the women I work with is that I want to grow my practice, Sean, but I don't have anything more to give. Like, I've got kids, I'm trying to ferry them around to different activities. I've got my husband, I've got dogs, and I've got all this stuff going on. I don't really have much more time to give to growing my practice. So if you're going to need me to do 20, 30 hours more a week, I don't have it. So this is about working smarter and not harder, and actually leveraging your team to start to grow the practice for you, but in a way they're really excited about, rather than a way where they're like, hang on a second, isn't this your job as the owner? So I'm Sian, if you don't know me already. I've been around Nick's group for a while, but haven't shared anything like this for probably a good 18 months. I think I did some training on how to move into telehealth last year. So I have been in marketing for almost 15 years. My husband runs a exercise physiology private practice that's actually come post me working with private practice owners. It's been very helpful for me to help him grow that. But my business came from being made redundant as a director of marketing when I was 36 weeks pregnant with my eldest, who you can see here when she was a baby. And I realized that I had to make a choice at that point between going back to work when I was ready to go back to work and working full time and giving up on being the mum that I wanted to be, or being a mum and finding another direction for my career, which is what I chose to do. And I've ended up helping hundreds of, if not thousands of practice owners over the last few years to grow their practices. And it's become kind of the thing I'm really passionate about. But it didn't go so well to start off with. So when I first started my business and was trying to find my way, as I know a lot of new business owners can be, I thought it'd be really easy, particularly because I am a supposed expert in the space of marketing. I thought I would be able to find clients pretty quickly. And then it just didn't pan out like that. And for a couple of years, I was really struggling to try and figure out what my niche was, how I was going to bring clients in, how I was going to support my family, because my husband was studying at the time for his degree and I was the main breadwinner. Not the smartest idea to start a business with a baby and being the breadwinner, but I'm a risk taker. So it took a while to figure that out. And in the process, we kind of got significantly in debt. But I came to a point where I was like, I've got to make this work one way or another. And so I went back and just became a student again, listened to all the podcasts, read books, had a business coach, looked at what was working, what wasn't, and started to really make some big changes about what I was doing and moved away from that corporate type marketing, which is what a lot of marketing agencies and a lot of marketing people will try and have you do as a practice owner, and actually moved instead to more of that small business mindset and more of the relationship type marketing that we're going to talk about today, and started to see some really significant changes in that. About the same sort of time, I met a lady called Rochelle, who's based here in Adelaide, who came to me and said, she's an OT, I want to open an OT clinic. So I've taken out a business loan and I have taken out a lease on this property. I've got 12 weeks to fill me and 2 other therapists, because that's how long I've got to cover the rent before the business loan will run out and I have to be making money. So I took everything I'd been using and applied it with Rochelle to her practice. We took that practice in 12 weeks from doors opening to 3 therapists at full-time capacity. Within 3 years, she now has 4 sites, team of 15, so you can see them celebrating their 3rd birthday here. And she's turning over $1 million in revenue, using in large part the marketing that we'll be talking about today. So, and I managed to find a way to do this in a really short amount of time. So my clients do this process in a couple of hours a week, and that's how they generate the results that they generate. And it doesn't require a lot of investment either. It's actually, minimal, like a few, maybe $1,000 to $2,000 over the year for everything that they do. And that is what I want to share with you tonight, is how you can do that process, because it's helping you guys is the thing that brings me most joy. And I know it's the way that I get to make an impact in the world. It's great that I get to help practice owners, but when I see the practice owners I work with who are almost exclusively amazing at what they do, because I find that they're the people who want to grow and have bigger businesses because they want to get their services out into the world more, to see them work with so many more people each year and have such an impact on those people's lives because they don't go through multiple therapists trying to find someone who can help. That's the thing that kind of gets me up in the morning, to know that, further down the line and through this ripple effect, people are having a better health outcome because I've made it easier for my clients to be found And so I've made it easier for that person to get the right services when they needed them. So maybe you've been wondering around marketing, like how you generate lots of referrals quickly to rebuild your practice caseload. Whether there's ways to market that don't require thousands of dollars, because the main thing I hear practice owners have been told to do is Facebook ads and Google ads, or to advertise in the local paper, or to sponsor the local sports club. And that ends up costing thousands and thousands over the course of the year. I'm working with a lady at the moment who came to me and said, we're doing really well, but I spend about $50,000 a year on ads, between Google ads and Facebook ads, to bring these clients in. And whilst it's great to be turning over the revenue we're turning over, I'd really like to have that money as profit rather than be spending it out on ads. So that's actually what we've been working on. Instead of necessarily growing the practice, it's more about switching it out so that $50,000 she used to spend on ads now actually becomes profit for her instead, because you don't need to spend it. How to generate new referrals when GPs won't meet with you. They're really hard to get in front of anyway, and I know that it's become almost impossible with COVID to do that. And how to build the caseload of your team instead of building your own caseload, because again, this is a common theme I see with owners where they're up to their eyeballs in clients, but every new referral that comes in is for them, and nobody wants to see anybody but them. And that then is like, well, I don't want to do any marketing because I can't see any more clients and they don't want to see anybody else. So wondering how you resolve that. We'll cover that tonight too. And so, like I said, we're going to cover all of that today, how you can go from having half empty books to full caseload, but to do it in a way that feels really authentic for you and your team, and in a way that feels fun. So I just want to talk through a few of the big mistakes that I see people making that can keep them stuck. And they have become more true, I think, with COVID, because where you've taken this big, so for some people, taken quite a significant drop in their client caseload and they haven't returned, the things that you need to do to quickly build a chunk of caseload are different to it being kind of like 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 2 out, 2 in, 1 out, and that kind of just slight progressive growth over time. If you need to bring in 50 new clients in a month, these are the things that often stop that from just happening. So the first of those is lacking the systems in your business to create the time and space to be consistent with marketing. Like I said right at the start, you can do average marketing really consistently and get amazing results, and far better results than you do if you do sporadic, amazing marketing. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that it takes 5 to 7 touch points with someone for them to be ready to refer to you. And that generally those touch points need to happen in a really short time frame, so over a couple of months. So what that means is if you reach out to somebody once as a potential referral partner, but then you don't speak to them again and they don't see anything from you again, they will forget about you. And that is so frustrating. I have people say to me, I've spoken to all these people and nobody's referring still. But if I ask them how many times they've spoken to them since, they'll say, oh, well, we haven't touched base because we've been too busy. And the first thing I usually hear from people is like, well, how on the earth do I find the time to do 5 to 7 touch points in 3 months? I'm like, we're busy. We need lots of new referrals coming in. Talk to me about how I do that. So my response is always about it being time to make the transition from being the lead clinician to being the CEO, because you simply cannot be both of those things and be effective and the business grow rapidly. If you are trying to be the lead clinician and seeing a full caseload and trying to slot in being CEO around that, then the CEO part suffers and you get trapped in the lead clinician role because you can't do what's needed as the CEO to remove yourself from lead clinician. And so you get trapped in this thing of knowing you need to be the CEO, but not having the time. And then the CEO stuff ends up being your evenings and your weekends, and that's where it all becomes really overwhelming. And Kieran, that I worked with, I've just finished working with Kieran recently, was a perfect example of this, and I know she won't mind me sharing. She reached out to me because she was completely overwhelmed. and just ready to give up. She was another one who said to me, I don't know why I don't just have a table in the front room, because I would be making more money than I am right now. But at the same time, she had no time to market, and she had no time to work on the business, because everybody wanted to see her, and her income was the linchpin of the practice and was what was keeping it afloat. But the thing that was really heartbreaking was that Kieran said to me, I really want to have a second baby. She's got a 2-year-old, and she said, I cannot see how that is even a possibility right now. The practice nearly fell apart last time I took time off, and there's no way I could take money out of the practice to sustain me while I'm off. So I just can't see how it's going to happen, but we desperately want a second baby. And that was how she came to be on the phone to me. We worked a lot on this systems and processes piece, but in a really, really manageable way. So we would pick 1 or 2 things at a time to figure out how we could systematize them to give Kieran time back, so that she could use that time to market the business, to fill her other clinicians, and bring in more revenue so that she didn't need to work with as many clients. So a lot of moving parts, but over the course of 6 months that we worked together, we managed to remove Kieran, so she was only doing a couple of days a week in the clinic, seeing clients. She'd outsourced, or delegated is a better word, everything she could to her team. And she's actually due to have her second baby in February, and is going to be taking off 4 months completely out of the practice. And then we'll just be returning back to work over the next 4-ish months. I think she was thinking she'd be back in maybe part-time by 8 months after she'd had her baby. But that wasn't the only thing we've been able to do. So we've also, in that time, doubled Kieran's monthly revenue, and she's making 50% more profit. She's taken on a new physio in that time and filled their caseload in just 8 weeks. And like I said, she's going off to have her baby, but she's also going to be maintaining a 5K monthly salary while she's taking that time off, which she would tell you was just not even a possibility when we first started talking back in March. And the number one way that, the 3 ways that you start to do this, to build these systems and processes so that you can free yourself up a little bit at a time, more and more, so that you can become more of the CEO and less of the linear clinician, do more of the marketing to fill your team, to make more money, working less. The first thing is to identify the regular tasks that need to happen to keep the practice running. Once you've done that, and I look at that from a point of view of what are the marketing tasks that need to happen daily, weekly, monthly? What are the client delivery tasks that need to happen daily, weekly, and monthly? And what are the operation tasks that need to happen daily, weekly, and monthly? I then get you to have a look at, so who is currently doing them, and who do you want to be doing them? So we usually do this over 2 spreadsheets, like list all the tasks of everything that happens under those categories and who's doing them right now. And then some of this is about you looking for where you're doing it and who you can move it to. And some of it is about looking at where other tasks are falling and how you might move things off further down the chain to free up, say, your practice manager more to support you, or to free up your admin more to support with some of the tasks, or to have one of your lead clinicians take something off your plate because then they stop doing something else because admin pick it up. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle of being able to move things around and shift people's responsibilities. But when you've got that ideal world view of how you want it to look and how it needs to look for you to be working less in the business, so you can work more on the business, you can then, one task at a time, start to say, okay, well, if I'm going to remove this from my plate, how do I remove this task from my plate? And what systems are needed? What process might be needed to underpin this so I can move this one thing from my plate? Because the thing I see people try and do a lot is just like, right, let's systematize everything. Let's create processes around everything. And it's massively overwhelming. You go into analysis paralysis and you just get stuck. So doing it this way of one thing at a time, 1 a week is usually, 1 or 2 a week is usually what I work with people on. really helps you to, over time, free up the mental space without necessarily noticing that you're doing it. And one of the key things to look for with this is, because a lot of people have some systems and processes in place. Kieran was like that. But the key thing to look for is, like, where does the buck stop with me? So where does it still land back with me at the end that I still have things to do that mean I can't completely remove myself from that process? So a really good example of one of the things we worked on in Kieran's practice was that she had her team would create an order of what they needed supplies wise, but then they would always come to her to check it at the end of the week, like, Kieran, I'm going to do this order. Can you check what's on here? Is it all okay? But in order for her to know it was okay, she had to go to the cupboard and look. And she's like, by the time I've done that, it becomes this pointless exercise. I might as well have just gone to the cupboard myself and done the order. So what we did instead to create a better system around it was to do a stock sheet, like what should be in the cupboard. And then instead of her team guessing at what they thought was needed, they stock checked. Okay, well, there's 4 lots of hand towels, there's 2 lots of bed sheets, and there's 1 lot of detergent. We actually need 8 of the first one, 4 of the second one, and 2 of the third one. Therefore, I know we need these things. And so she got that process to the point where she didn't have to check it anymore, because as long as they were saying, there's 4, there should be 8, therefore we need 4, she was able to completely remove herself from that process, and her team just do ordering now on their own. So sometimes it's just about thinking about a system or process in a slightly different way and coming at it with the mindset of, how can I remove myself from this so that this isn't something else that lands on my plate, and I can actually take that 10 minutes back. Because if you're trying to find 2 hours to market, even an hour, you only need to do that 6 times, and now you have that time no matter how overwhelmed you are, because you've taken it back from small places. It doesn't have to be these grand gestures to find this time. It can just be taking small pockets back by removing yourself from being the central point of confirmation, I guess, because you end up doing half the task yourself anyway, as you guys would know. And so the result of getting these systems and processes in place is that you have more time to focus on working on the business instead of in it. You create more time, space, and the freedom to choose what you do with your time. But because you've got that time and you start to market more, you stay top of mind for the people you're looking for referrals from, and you become their referral partner of choice. I'm going to talk more about becoming referral partner of choice because it's the linchpin of everything I teach. And it all comes from that regular marketing rather than it being ad hoc or none at all. So you make more money working less, and you get your life back, which I think is the key thing, because it has this habit business of just spilling over into every part of your life. And before you know it, you're writing up client notes on a Sunday afternoon because you haven't done them all week because you've been caught up in everything else. And then that's no fun for anybody. So the second mistake I see people making that really holds them back, and it's becoming more of a problem because often with COVID, most people as the owner have not seen much impact on their caseload. Often they've had a wait list where people have cancelled, they've been able to pull their wait list forward. And so really they're still full. But where they've seen the impact significantly is with their other therapists. And now they're sitting at even lower capacities than they used to because more of their clients have cancelled and less of them have come back. The key issue with this is that if you are the brand, then everybody wants to see you and all the new clients are calling for you. And it can be really hard to move them over to your team because they've been told to see you. So, and this comes from it always being you, and it's super common, and I see it a lot with the clients I work with, because you end up with team because you've been really successful and you're really good at what you do, and you end up with more clients coming to you than you can see. So the next logical step is to hire somebody thinking, well, I'll just give some of my caseload to them. And then they may get, mostly full. And so you think, okay, well, I'll give my caseload, we'll pour some caseload over to somebody else. But meanwhile, your caseload is staying really, really full because you're just overflowing. These people aren't creating their own referrals. They're just taking your overflow. And so in Kieran's example, when she removed herself from the picture because she went on maternity leave and people knew she wasn't there, they stopped referring because they were referring to Kieran. So Kieran wasn't there, so they stopped referring. And that was a large part about why the practice nearly fell over when she had her first child. So your team, it's because your team don't have their own brand. They're not known in the way that you are. Nobody knows what they specialize in. No one knows why they should refer to them. Referrers might not even know that they exist. And they may not even know that your clinic can see that kind of client. If, for example, you're known for women's health, and now you have 2 new clinicians who do sports as their specialists, but all the referrals come in for you and you're known for women's health and you've never done sport, people might not even know that you offer those services within your clinic. So the question I always ask in this is, because it can involve some some sometimes uncomfortable conversations if you're trying to move clients over to see your team. But what would you rather be dealing with, an overflowing caseload while your team is sat twiddling their thumbs, or a diary that's full to the brim with clients that your team love to see, and then having the revenue to show for that? Because I don't think there's anything worse than you working, a 12-hour day, seeing 18 clients, and then knowing that your team has done 5 hours and sat around and not done much else for the rest of the time. But it comes down to you positioning your team as being a really amazing option in their own right, and having them build their own personal brand in the way that you did when you first started your practice, so that people start to refer to them in the way that they did to you. But what I find with a lot of owners is that they can't remember or have no idea how they built their own clinic. They're like, I don't know, it just happened. I just started getting referrals, and then I got more, and then I got more, and then I was full. And so when they have to try and logically or systematically build somebody else's caseload, they're not actually sure how they built their own to have anywhere to start with how they're going to build somebody else's. But when it comes down to it, clients just want the best treatment. So often I hear people say, oh, my clients won't see anybody else. They've always seen me. They're not going to see anybody else. In actual fact, clients 9 times out of 10 just want the best treatment and they want to get well. The reason they're insistent on seeing you is because they think that you are the best option to achieve that. I've had situations with clients where they're seeing clients. I've had situations with my clients where they're seeing their clients, but they're not their ideal clients, and they're not the most qualified or experienced person in their clinic, but they're seeing that person because the person's told them they don't want to see anybody else. And actually, it's just about positioning your team with that person so that they understand that actually they're going to get a much better result by seeing someone else in your clinic rather than seeing you because they're more qualified or experienced. When we position it in that way for people, they will always do what's right for them, even if they've spent 6 months seeing you and think you're delightful. If you say to them, actually, you know what, I don't specialize in women's health, and we've had a new physician come on who does, and she's got some space in her diary, and I really think you're going to get a level up in your results by going to see her. I'm going to schedule you in with her for your next appointment, and let me know how you go. If there's anything I can do once you get started, let me know. Positioning it like that with a client, they're always going to say, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that. Please book me in with her. And I've had this with clients who are speech pathologists and have seen clients for years, and they've used this same approach of saying, we've had a new clinician come on. She speaks Spanish and your child speaks Spanish. I think that it would be really great to have a fresh set of eyes on this, maybe intermix some language into it that we can't, because I don't speak Spanish. I think that would be a great next move for you. If you have any issues with it, let me know. But if not, let's get you booked in with her for your next session. And they've moved people off their caseload that have literally been on there for 3 or 4 years, and they thought they would never be able to move off. And it just comes down to this fact that clients just want the best treatment. They don't really generally care who it is. They just want the best treatment they can get. And Sandra's a really good example of this. So Sandra's a physio that works over in Perth, and she came to me. She'd been in her practice for 25 years when we met, and she was feeling really disillusioned. She'd spent 4 or 5 years with a clinician working with her. Her list was overflowing, and her employee rarely sat at more than 50%. And she was just said to me, I've been doing this so long, and I'm so tired, and I'm quite over it, and I don't really know what to do next. You know, I'm long in the tooth with my practice, but I'm willing to give it a go to see if I can make some changes. So we use the abundant referral system I'm going to share with you. And within 3 months, he was full. And I spoke to Sandra recently. So this is probably maybe a bit more than a year now since I last spoke to her, since she went through the program. But she's now got a team of 3 who work with her. They're all fully booked. And Sandra's decided, because things are going so well and the practice is worth so much more now, that she's just going to sell it and go traveling. And she was saying to me, like, I just would never have thought that was possible. I thought I was going to have to work all my days out seeing clients. Because I think it's maybe 8 years till Sandra's due to retire. It's like, I thought I was going to spend the next 8 years seeing 18 clients a day. And maybe I'd get rid of the employees so I made more money. But she was like, I never thought there would be anything different. And some of that was because she moved her caseload over to her employee using that approach we just spoke about. So it's totally possible, even when people have been with you for a really long time. And so the question I always get post talking about this is, how do I build my team's personal brand? And this is, we're going to talk more about these 3 things, but it's about getting clarity around who it is that they love to see. So often in practices, clients call in, admin take the call. They say, I want to see a physio as soon as possible. The admin look at the schedule and say, Michelle's free tomorrow at 2. Does that work? Yep, great. In to see Michelle. And that person may have a shoulder injury, and Michelle may specialize in women's health and love women's health. But it's about convenience and scheduling over who is the best person to see that client and who does the team want to work with most. But when you get clear on who your team love to work with, not only do the clients get better results because they're working with someone who's really passionate and excited to work with them, has more knowledge, more skill set, requires less mentoring to achieve great results, but the team are happier because they're working with clients they enjoy more. And in positioning it with them that they could build a caseload that they really love and that they can get really great results with, and actually work, not work as hard, but you know how it's easier to get results with someone when you're really passionate about helping them, and that makes the work easier and more fun. That comes from you understanding who they want to work with, and then working with them to start to identify how they might bring more of those people in. Once they've got that clarity about who that audience might be, it's then about having collaboration with people out in the community who could send those clients to them, and building connection with those people so that they know they're there, they know they've got space in their caseload, and they start to think about referring people onto them as and when they see them. I'm going to go into more detail about that, but I just wanted to cover it here. The result of doing this work, and this is a piece that I do religiously with my clients, we will identify 1 or 2 people in the team whose caseloads are particularly low and the owner is willing to invest time in, and we will do this work of building their personal brand. What happens is, collectively, staff morale will start to increase as people start to be busier. They're starting to see more of their ideal clients. If they're on commissions, they're making more money. That has a huge impact on morale, which is really important right now with I know everybody's feeling pretty flat and pretty tired after this year. So that boost to morale was making a really big difference. The clients get better results and they tell more people about your clinic. Referrers are happy to send new clients to you because they know your clinic is amazing, and everybody that works there is really amazing. And it's not just you that's amazing. And then you grow exponentially as a result because you're getting more of these referrals coming in. And the practice name becomes the brand instead of you being the brand. And that really is the ticket to a freedom of working less and making more, because it's no longer you that are the central point of everything that's going on. So then the third mistake that I want to talk about is seeing people waiting for word of mouth to happen rather than purposefully creating new referrals. And this is probably the core of most of what I talk to people about. They'll say to me, never had to market my practice. It just kind of grew organically. Everything's just been bumbling along and it's kind of going okay. I wish it would grow faster. I wish I had more confidence to employ more people. And it all comes down to the notion of waiting for word of mouth and having no control whatsoever over the pace of growth of your practice, how many new clients are coming in each week, what kind of clients are coming in, having enough people to fill your team. It's where all the fear around recruitment comes in. And I know this is difficult because it's hard to find people right now, but should I take someone on? Shouldn't I take someone on? What if I take them on and I can't fill them? What if I take them on and they have a few clients and then they don't keep them and we don't have enough coming in? I don't know where the referrals come from. So sometimes there's 20, sometimes there's 100, sometimes there's 50. How am I going to support them with a caseload? All these questions come because you're reliant on word of mouth rather than purposefully creating new referrals. And we're told, well, it just takes time. And if you want to build word of mouth, you should advertise to get your name out there. And this is where the piece comes of doing Google ads and Facebook ads and getting your name out there and putting banners on the side of football grounds and doing newspaper ads, because they're all under the guise of getting your name out there in the hope that people will refer each other to you. But in actual fact, like most clients, even the really amazing clients might refer 1 or 2 people to you every couple of months. Over the course of a year, they might send 5 or 10. Clicked on too far. But if you find really good referral partners, they can send 5 a month, 10 a quarter. And I call these strategic alliances. You can also call them referral partners. And they are simply a mutually beneficial relationship with any professional that sees your ideal client on a regular basis and can refer them on to you. And this is where the thing of talking to doctors comes from, because doctors see ideal clients, they can refer, and that's where most people stop. So if they can't get in with the GP or they've seen all their GPs, that's as far as they go, and they're not really sure where else to go with it. But there's actually lots and lots and lots of professionals who see your ideal clients on a regular basis that aren't being contacted by physios. And I'll share a case shortly that's a really interesting example of someone who went outside the box and we had massive success with building their caseload. But for now, I just want you to think about, if you need 50 new clients in the next month, it's going to be so much easier to find 50 new clients from 5 people sending you 10 referrals than it is to try and find 50 new clients as individual clients, whether that be through Google ads or sending out an email to your client saying, who do you know you can refer? Here's a voucher. You're doing 10 times more work to bring those people in than if you just find 5 professionals who could refer 10 people to you. And that's where the working smarter not harder comes in, and where it becomes a case of maximizing your effort, and where you can do it in such a limited amount of time, because then it lets you achieve exponential growth, but doing it in just an hour or 2 a week. Like I say to clients, if you want to be an overachiever and do 2 hours, go for it, but you really don't need to. You can build these relationships in an hour a week. And actually, as the owner, when you're building your team's personal brand, it's not actually about you doing it, because if you do it, all you're doing is further building your own personal brand. It's actually about supporting your team to go out and do it, because in that way, they're building their own personal brands, generating their own referrals and building their own caseloads. And yes, the concern can be then, but what if they leave? What if they build their own caseload and they think it's really easy and they go and find a job or they start their own business? But I would say to clients, like, it's twofold, right? So in the short term, you get to capitalize on them being there and making the most revenue from them that you can whilst they're happy and seeing their ideal clients. But they're less likely to leave because you're doing that for them, because those of you watching who have worked for other people will know that this scenario I spoke about earlier, where clients just get put into your caseload, is most often what happens in practices. So my clients use this as a tool to recruit. When you come and work with us, we'll get to know who your ideal clients are. Our goal will then be to fill your caseload with as many of those people as we can and to provide professional development to help you further expand in that area. That actually is a really powerful way of holding team and retention, because people feel valued and they know they're not going to find that anywhere else. The other thing around people leaving is that they might leave and you might build the skills where they feel confident, but you can actually use that to your advantage when you're trying to get them to work with you on this, because you can say to them, I know you're not going to work for me forever. You might work for me for 5 years, hopefully. When you move on, you're going to go somewhere and they're not going to be as keen to fill your caseload with dream clients. But the skills I'm going to teach you here will actually allow you to build your own caseload wherever you go and wherever you work. You'll always be able to work with your ideal clients because you'll know how to build your own caseload. You'll know how to get people to call and ask for you. And if you fill your own caseload, you don't get so much of the random people calling up being dropped in your caseload. And I just wanted to share Madison's example of how easy and quick it can be to do this work. Madison started working with me around July time last year when Melbourne were in their first really long lockdown. She only worked in the clinic 2 days a week when we first started working together, because she had a 4-year-old and I think her little one was 18 months at that point. And she was already short on time when we first met. And then they went into lockdown and both of her girls were home with her. And she was like, all right, Sean, now you're really going to have to prove that we can put this in short amounts of time, because I now have 2 kids home with me. So you've got to tell me things I can do in 15 minutes and I can get done at a maximum of an hour or 2 a week. She had 2 therapists at that point that were not full. And we filled both of those therapists up in that time. She doubled her revenue. She doubled her salary that she was taking home. She's then gone on to take on a couple more therapists, and she's done a big renovation actually recently to change the garage of the property that she owns into a Pilates room, and is now bringing in new revenue from that. And it's all from the work that we did on, filling her team, creating more revenue, which allowed her to build the Pilates studio, which has allowed her to create more revenue. So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so the result of not waiting for word of mouth, but actually generating referrals, is that you grow much faster than the norm with more consistency. You attract your team's ideal clients with ease. That boosts morale. It improves retention. You get to work smarter and not harder. You can forecast your growth, which is just life-changing, to say, I know that we get in 15 referrals a month. If we doubled how much of this we did, we'd get 30 referrals a month. Therefore, I know in 3 months' time, everyone's going to be full and we're going to be starting to build a wait list. So about 10 weeks from now, I need to start thinking about what I'm going to do about, probably sooner, like with the way hiring people is right now, I'd be saying you want to be thinking about it now. But in a world where there's an abundance of people, you'd be like, okay, well, I need to start thinking about that in 8 weeks, because it's going to take a month to bring them on, and then I'll have a wait list and I'll have some caseload. That sounds like pie in the sky stuff. But when you can forecast how many referrals are going to be coming in, you can workforce plan and know when you're going to need new team and be completely confident that you will have work for them and have clients for them. And that removes all the fear around making those decisions around new premises, new team, new admin. Should I get a practice manager? And on top of all of that, because you're seeing more people, you serve more people, and you positively impact the health and well-being of more people, which is ultimately what most people are in practice for. It's how most of the people I work with get started. And you do that in a way that's authentic and creates massive growth, but feels good for you, rather than being pushy or salesy or, you know, cold calling, or all those things that people think of when I say marketing, and they're like, oh, I'd rather poke my eye out than do those things. So how do you do this? What is the process? So like we said, the first step in this process of creating lots of referrals, I call it the abundant referral system because that's what it creates, is to get the clarity. So it's about sitting down with whoever in your team you identify as being the 1 or 2 people. You can do it with more, but if you've got a team of like 4 or 5, there's usually 1 or 2 that are the problem that bring everybody else's average down. I find most people have got 1 or 2 rock stars who are always full, someone in the middle, and then a couple that are struggling. So you identify your people you're going to work with. That's your clarity. You then identify the niche you're going to focus on. And I usually say just to focus on one niche if you can. So, you know, if you've got 2 or 3 people that are interested in sports physio and 2 of them are struggling, you know, make that the niche you look at. So you decide on the niche you're going to focus on, and then you work with your team to identify who their ideal clients in that niche are, because that further helps them get excited about the process of bringing those people in. So, I mean, if we carry on that sports analogy, I've got a client at the moment who's got 3 people in her team who are really into sport. 2 of them are struggling to fill their caseload because they've come back from pregnancy and their old clients have moved out to other people. So we've brought that team together, we're focusing on sport. They've identified, like, one really loves riding, another one's really into netball, another one's really into basketball. And so they kind of know their sub niches, and they also know what they're really passionate about helping people with. And so now they're all working together in a group to start to do the next step, but they're all really clear on who they're trying to bring in and the area of focus of a niche that they're trying to build within the practice, because that practice doesn't really focus on that niche, hasn't really focused on that niche previously. So the second step is the collaboration piece. So this is where you create really strong referral partnerships to ensure you receive consistent referrals. Because if you go back and look, and I have clients do this, if you go back and look at where the majority of your referrals have come from, you will find that around 80% of your referrals will come from about 20% of referral partners. So you may have a list of 200 people that have referred, but you'll probably find that 160 of them are clients who have referred their auntie or their sister or their friend, and they've referred 1 or 2 people. But then you're going to find at the top that there's the doctors, the massage therapists, all the other people who send lots and lots of referrals to you. And they are the ones that need to become your focus, rather than trying to generate more word of mouth from the people who refer 1 or 2. Because, as you know, if you can find another doctor to refer to you, that can have a massive impact on your practice. But every other physio in your area is thinking the same way. They are trying to get doctors to refer to them too. And that is why doctors do not want you to go and do lunch there anymore. I spoke to my doctor about it, and she said, I literally have a physiotherapist every other week trying to come and present to me at lunchtime. I spend all my time with patients. All I want to do is eat my sandwich. I don't want someone to talk to me about physiotherapy at lunch. Just want to eat my sandwich. But there are lots of other people who see your ideal clients more that could be referring to you. So I think an example outside of physio. So oftentimes I'll see with occupational therapy and speech that they will be trying to contact the doctors over and above trying to contact each other. But a speech pathologist will see more occupational therapy, more clients needing occupational therapy in a day than a GP would see people needing occupational therapy, and is therefore a much better potential referral partner than the GP is. But people don't tend to think outside of that box. So something you can do to help you think outside of that box is to list 30 different professionals who work with your ideal clients, or the ideal clients of the niche you've identified, and to look at some of those that you aren't yet contacting. So I'll share a bit more about Ben later, but Ben was a client I worked with up in Newcastle, and he had a brand new clinic. He was trying to get in contact with the doctors. He was new to town. They all had people they referred to. And so we did this exercise, and he wrote down 30 different people that could refer to him. And two of the big ones that came up that he hadn't thought of previously were dance studios and gymnastics clubs, because he focuses on lower limbs. So there's a lot of those kind of injuries that he was dealing with. He contacted the two biggest, most professional dance studios in town and the biggest gymnastics studio in town. And within 2 months, those three studios were making up 60% of his referrals. He started to get referrals from the GPs because they saw his reports and they saw what he was doing. But it came the other way around. The dance studios and the gymnastics club were by far his biggest referrer, because there was so many of them in there. And as soon as he started doing work for some of them and getting great results, they just told each other about him. And it was, pretty out of the box to think of them and to contact them, and you just probably wouldn't have assumed they would become his biggest referral partners, but they did. So the next step then, once you've identified these people and you start to build relationships with them, and you start to focus on win-win relationships, because it has to be win-win. It's one of the key things I talk about in everything. Every interaction with anybody has to be win-win. That's the way human beings function. You can't go to them and say, hey, this is what we do. We want more referrals. You've got to understand why they would refer to you and what's in it for them. Once you've built that relationship, though, it's about the 5 to 7 touch points over 3 months that become the key point of connection that actually builds that relationship to the point where they're like, okay, I know enough about you now that I'll refer. And the way that you do that is by leveraging singular touch points each month that go out to everybody, and then every 3 months sending out case studies that explain what you do, who you do it for, how you've helped, and then simply asking if they know anybody or have come into contact with anybody who is the same as that client. And by monthly touch points, what I mean by that, and what I work with clients on building out, is simple, easy, fun things that keep you top of mind, that show the personality of your brand, that share a little bit maybe about what you do, but it is much more about, so I talk about it being either educational, entertaining, or inspiring. So I've had clients that have done International Day of Happiness, and they send a card with a joke on it with their brand on. So it's entertaining. It may be a key, like Stroke Awareness Month. They send some information on how physio rehab can improve stroke outcomes with education. They may send something at Easter. Some clients put chocolates in for Easter. So it's not about asking for the referral. It's about staying top of mind, building relationships, building connection, so that when that person comes across someone that they can refer to you, you are the person they think of. Because there's an absolute sea of referrals out there. Like, there is no shortage of people that need therapists right now. The thing is, you being the person that is thought of when referrals are being passed out or people are being recommended, that's what has you have those referrals coming to you, or those clients coming to you, over and above your competition. And this is where I'll share Ben's story with you, because it sounds too good to be true, right? Like, what do you mean, Sian? I just build some new relationships and send out some postcards, and then I get a ton of referrals coming in. But as I just shared a minute ago with Ben, about Ben, he set up his practice in Newcastle. He was really well known in Sydney, but moved up to Newcastle with his family because they wanted a change of scenery. He decided to open his own clinic up in Newcastle, but he had very little network up there, and really didn't know many people. He didn't have lots of people to call on to start sending referrals to him. So we started with just 4 clients when he opened his doors. So within 8 weeks, Ben was seeing 25 clients a week using this process. So he started to get those referrals coming in from the dance studios and gymnastics. That then led to some GPs referring in when they saw his reports coming back. Within 4 months, Ben was consistently seeing 50 clients a week and went up to averaging at 55 before he took out a lease on his dream private practice space down the road he actually told me about when we first met, and recruited a new clinician and admin. Again, going back to that consistency of knowing referrals are coming in, he was able to do that and not be, worried about like, well, how am I going to fill this person's caseload? Can I afford an admin? He was able just to move into doing those things. So within 6 months, Ben had gone from a brand new practice to completely full, taking out a lease on his dream space and hiring another clinician and admin, which isn't common, isn't a common outcome for a lot of people that I speak to, and wasn't at all. Like Ben was anticipating that would take him 12 to 24 months to achieve that. And the practice was really a pie in the sky dream, I suppose. So I know what comes up for people, and I've said it takes such a short amount of time to achieve this, like just an hour or 2 a week, but people still are often concerned that they don't have the time to do it. And when we're doing all of the things and seeing really, not the kind of success we're looking for, it's really easy to feel like, there isn't any more time to give, and how can I achieve these things? And is that really possible? But I wanted to share Stephanie's story because Stephanie works over in Perth. She's got 4 clinics. When she first came to me, they were doing okay, but they weren't reaching their potential. But she's got 2 small kids. She had a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, completely overwhelmed, completely sleep deprived, running 4 clinics, running around like a headless chicken, she'll happily tell you. And she's like, I need time to figure out how to make these practices grow. I have no time to do that. And then when I do have time, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's so frustrating to have some time and be rested and then not know what the next step is. Please help me. So we use the abundant referral system and the process of identifying what tasks could be taken off of Stephanie's plate, what systems needed to be put in place for that to happen. We brought in a practice manager because she didn't have a practice manager. And they're now operating at about 85% capacity across their clinics because of the new referrals that have been coming in. Monthly revenue has increased by 50%. And because of the space and confidence Stephanie's had in the growth of the clinic over that time, the opportunity to move from 2 small rooms in a GP surgery into a clinic that had 6 consulting rooms and a huge gym and would allow her to have 10 people working in it came up. And she was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm scared, but I'm pretty confident that I can fill this place up and that we've got everything in place now. Obviously the concern is always at the moment about finding staff, but she was able to not only have the confidence in making that move, but actually the brain space and the energy to even contemplate that move, because it's been huge. It obviously required a huge refurb. And she said it just wasn't something she would have been able to do 6 months ago, literally because she was just chasing her tail constantly and just overwhelmed and confused. And, what day is it, Sian? Like, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Are we supposed to be meeting today or not? And so to be able to remove some of that weight from her through, delegating tasks, but fill her team so that she had the confidence to make these moves, I'm sure she'd tell you it's been huge for her. And then the other thing people ask is like, will this actually work for me though? Like, you've talked about all these other people, but what if it doesn't work for me? And I think the biggest thing I would say to anybody is that what you believe is possible and what any of the people's stories I've shared tonight thought was possible and what I know is actually possible for you are 2 completely different things, because we are often confined by what other people tell us is possible for us. And like Brené Brown says, we'll be told that by people who aren't in the arena. They don't know what it it takes to grow a practice. They don't know what's possible. They don't know what other people are doing. And then they'll tell us, oh, you can't grow because COVID's happening, or you shouldn't look at that new premises because how would you ever fill it? No one's getting clients right now. And if you can take one thing away from tonight, I want it to be that anything can be possible if you've got the right marketing system in place and you're being consistent with that marketing, and that things that you've been told are impossible or will take years to happen, it can actually happen really quickly. So the final story I wanted to share with you tonight is just Jackie's story. So Jackie had a new clinic in Melbourne when we first started working together. She was seeing clients 2 days a week herself, and she had a hospital job. She still has a hospital job. But she said to me, oh, you know, I'd like to bring more people on, but I think it will be a couple of years. But we built her caseload and her referral base so quickly using this approach of knowing who she was going after as her ideal client, knowing who saw those people in massive abundance day in, day out, more so than the GPs, building relationships with those people, staying in touch with those people. She has had such an avalanche of referrals come through that she actually has 6 people working for her now. This is less than 12, bit over 12 months. She started working with me last August. She's got 2 more starting in the next couple of months. She tripled her revenue last year. She made $150,000 profit last year. And I spoke to her last week and she's like, I only see a day a week of clients now. And if I do work on the practice, I try and do it at the beach with the kids because I don't actually need to be in the office, and I'm, you know, trying to move towards not even working at the beach. But if that is absolutely not an outcome that Jack thought was possible for her a year ago. But like I said, the consistent average marketing, because Jack will tell you she's not good at marketing. She'll say, I just keep doing the things like Sean says, like nothing I do is groundbreaking. I just meet new people, build relationships with them, stay in touch systematically every week, doing an hour a week. And it's the compound effect of those actions over time that have brought Jack to this place where she's doing as well as she's doing. And so, like I said, if you can take anything away from tonight, let it be that you can double or even triple the amount of clients that are coming into your practice, and do it in a way that aligns with your values and isn't at the sacrifice of your family more so than you are right now, so that you can achieve all the things that you want to achieve in your practice and the growth that you want to achieve. And so the question just becomes, will you take the steps to implement the system in your marketing and business so that you can build your caseload too? So you can have all the things we've been talking about tonight: more revenue, profit, reducing your own caseload, working smarter, not harder, having the freedom and flexibility you started for. Because I think that's the hardest thing for me when I have people come to me. Nobody sets out to open their own practice to work for less than a graduate wage for 50 hours a week, to have their partner complaining at them, to have their kids telling them that they miss them, putting them to bed. That's not what people start their practice for. But like, that is so often what people come back to me or come to me in the situation, and it's just heartbreaking because that's not what anybody sets out to achieve. And the last thing I just want to say is that your time, like, I truly believe that you're all here to have a huge impact in the world. That's why people stick it out when they're earning minimal amount of money and they're working really hard. It's because they know that they want more for themselves, but they also want to have more impact in the world. And walking away from their practice just isn't. I had a lady last week who said, I'm just going to walk away. And I was like, but you won't walk away, will you? And she's like, no, I won't walk away. You're right. It just has to work because I've got big dreams and I've got big plans, and I'm too passionate about helping the people that we're here to help. So just to say that, you know, it is your time to be able to do all those things and have that impact, and to stop the guesswork with using a system. But this system, it sounds super simple. It doesn't mean it's easy, but the system of having clarity, building relationships, staying in contact, that 3-step system can have massive results in your practice when you do it consistently. And if that's something you want help with, I am here to support in any way I can. If you want to have a chat with me, I'll share some details about what that looks like. But otherwise, if you've got any questions, I'm here to answer any of those for you. Anything that I spoke about that you're like, tell me more about that thing, Shah. What does that mean? How can I do that? I'll open the floor to you, ladies. Hopefully that was helpful.